Today we're going to be diving into the potential multiverse in the DCEU. We know, bold hope, right? Especially since we've just started to rev up the restart we deserve. But, at least for the Red Cape, this could be an easy possibility. Now, hear us out for a second, cause all of these Supermans are iconic. And while we're on the subject, who's the best one? So if you're ready, let's get into it. First up, why a Spider-Man multiverse just makes sense. Before talking about this, let's get on the same page. The DC Universe could have its Spider-Man multiverse moment with Superman, cause before the MCU hit, even with Garfield's hints, no one thought they'd go there. So after that, anything we want to geek out here about, it's free game and completely fair, especially after Henry Cavill's return as Superman, which is honestly still a fever dream. But finally, the Man of Steel is gonna be back in the DCEU's plans for the first time in years, and maybe right front and center. See, because of the shape of DC Studios now, with co-CEOs James Gunn and Peter Safran writing the DCEU's future roadmap, Superman is going to be an insanely important DCEU player moving forward. Come on, it wouldn't make sense to have these proud geeks take on the helm for this truly beloved franchise if they're not going to play with these characters and stories like it was intended. So in our heads, it makes sense that the DCEU's multiverse is explored. Well, even after The Flash, its doors and starts one of the biggest aspects of the franchise's future. And the best part for us, we don't have to theorize about this stuff completely blind. Yes, of course, we're talking about MCU's Spider-Man No Way Home. It's a cultural reset, so it makes sense for DCEU to take some valid inspiration and then give us the storyline we deserve with Superman, our beloved and proud nerd Henry Cavill. Next up, we don't need the same version of Superman. See, apart from not making the multiversal stuff too far-fetched, if the execs go down this road, there's a fine line between what we want for this character and what's easy. Let's explain. Now, if you didn't know, this idea wouldn't be the DC added the multiverse, cause we got a taste of that chaos with the Crisis on Infinite Earths event, and genuinely, that was one of the best build-up plots TV had seen. So the fact that The Flash will continue this type of storyline, it's incredible. But there are some limits to the idea if it ain't used properly. Look, the multiverse concept allows multiple versions of the same character to exist at the same time. With that, as you can probably understand, there's a need to give each version unique traits that show different parts of their lore. All well and good, right? We're less confused and more entertained. Wonderful. But even though the Spider-Man team-up in No Way Home did this very well, if it's not balanced out well, the gimmick loses its spark, and the movie becomes a few actors starring as the same character. We don't need to explain why no one needs that horror on top of everything else we've been put through, especially when the blueprint for this golden seed has already been done so well. So we're going to try and have faith that, for once, these characters are in more passionate hands that know what this fandom has been waiting for. Let's talk about Welling's potential return. Look, if we're gonna run with this rumor, then we gotta give some loyalty to the lore we grew up with. But if the DCEU does add our childhood hero, well, this new era would automatically be as iconic as the MCU. But if you're somehow unaware, or we're way too young, Smallville set up a highly beloved and popular version of Clark Kent, with the series showing his young years before becoming Superman. For many of us, this man became our comfort character before we even knew what that was. And the incredible Welling hasn't forgotten about Smallville. He's even gone on to co-host the Talkville podcast with Michael Rosenbaum, and not so subtly suggesting an animated revival of the show, which, where's the petition for us to make that happen? But that's not all. He's also expressed interest in more Smallville adventures with Erica Durance, so it's safe to say the man would be on board if the call comes in. And though Welling's last appearance as Clark Kent on Crisis showed him as a voluntarily depowered husband and father, come on, in the world of alien superheroes and underwater cities, trying to restore his powers for a vital mission should hardly be impossible. Of course, only with the right story. What's even better, with Welling never fully featured on camera in his Superman costume, a crossover with Cavill, Hecklin, and Ruth would be the event to finally show him wearing the red cape. Isn't that super exciting? Following that, how variants of Superman would team up, and how they've already, kinda, shown us the different parts of the Man of Steel. See, the groundwork for our theory is already there, because with his 4 epic appearances, Cavill's Superman has developed from an outsider coping with self-doubt to a confident symbol of hope, and Hecklin and Ruth had approached the Man of Steel in different ways. Ruth's Superman, with the modern essence of Christopher Reeve's version, was last seen in Crisis on Infinite Earths, kinda like the Kingdom Come Superman. Then we got Hecklin, who's played 5 different multiversal versions of Superman, has been mainly seen as the version of Clark Kent on Superman and Lois, focusing on journalism and the struggles of raising teenage sons, both, of course, equally difficult. Still, while Cavill, Hecklin, and Ruth each showed the innocence reminiscence of Superman, their Kal-Els also stand out, each a powerful version of the character in his own right. So then, how could the team-up between them all work? Well, we've got some theories. With Cavill returning as DC's Superman, and the film itself featuring different versions of Barry Allen, the Flash's story could start this up. This would make Cavill's Man of Steel decide that a team-up with his variants is crucial, because the Flash starting time travel and universe hopping will have a larger impact, so it'd make sense for Cavill's Superman to believe that different heroes from different Earths need to come together against larger threats. Cavill's Superman would assemble his Kryptonian Council. Up next, the honorary 90s Supermans. Come on, talking about all the new faces possibly teaming up, we can't forget the legends that paved the path and made this hero iconic for so many generations. So first we have John Newton, who appeared in the film Superboy in 1988 and was based on the show that aired as part of Superman's 50th anniversary. But Newton may have leaned too heavily on making the part his own, because he took out a lot of the hero's insecurity that made his journey relatable. Next, we had Gerard Christopher, who was seen in the film The Adventures of Superboy from 1989 to 1991, and when Newton was replaced in the second season, the show went on with Christopher. It began to grow out of his childish roots and into something more like our classic Superman, and he ended up as a writer, producer, and star. But going back, we ain't forgetting our first ever live-action Superman. That's right, none other than Kirk Alyn, and he played Superman in two 15-part movies, but began his career as a chorus boy in vaudeville and on Broadway before moving on to work as a song and dance man in many film musicals, which is just an iconic backstory because it ended up bringing him to stardom. Still, perhaps the most accurate version of this superhero, at least in the 90s, was when Christopher Reeve took on the red cape and carried it through Superman 1978, Superman 2, Superman 3, and Superman 4: The Quest for Peace. Lastly, our 20s Men of Steel. And let's just end off with a roundup of whom we'd been left in the DCEU so far. Of course, first we had Welling, who'd starred as Superman in Smallville with a no fights, no tights rule, well, at least when he's introduced. The idea was to follow the boy who becomes the hero, similar to Gotham a few years later, and the actor kept audiences captivated in that journey for a decade, until we finally saw a glimpse of the blue suit, but just in the finale. Again, when we say this man was a big part of our childhood, we weren't exaggerating. Then we met the iconic Ruth Brandon, who starred in the film Superman Returns, and Bryan Singer's nostalgic, hopeful nod to Richard Donner's Superman was just a unique view of the material. Because of that, Ruth's Superman is difficult to hate, especially since the actor was kind of playing Christopher Reeve as well as Clark Kent, which just leaves us with Henry Cavill, who played a very different Superman in Zack Snyder's darker DCEU. This side of Superman seemed insanely different from the character's entire history, but the central point of Man of Steel was to show how this character still had to find himself, and now we've left off at a point where the possibilities for growth are endless. That's a wrap for this video. Let us know what you think about the DCEU's alleged multiverse. Could they pull it off with Superman? And who has been your favorite variant? Let us know in the comments. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. See you in the next one.